What's up, chat? Woo-wee! I don't know if you guys can tell. I don't even know if I could tell, but I was outside a little bit, so might have got a little tan today. Super sunny. Tomorrow's gonna be sunny as well. This weekend I'll be out of town. I'll still bring you guys along. Hopefully I can have some time to spare but also some space to record these videos. Just like how we did when I was in Bend, Oregon for my birthday. Mind you, this will also be in Portland, so kind of funny, but without further ado, let's get into it. Number 3. In the classic spy novel, the secret agent is slippery and devious. We are wicked by the brilliance of the enemy. That was the way many CIA insiders explained away Florentena Espalega's revelations. Castro is a genius. The agents were brilliant actors. In truth, however, the most dangerous spies are rarely diabolical. Aldrich Ames, maybe the most damaging traitor in American history, had mediocre performance reviews, a drinking problem, and didn't even try to hide all the money he was getting from the Soviet Union for his spying. Ana Montes was scarcely any better. Right before she was arrested, the DIA found the codes she used to send her dispatch to Havana in her purse. And in her apartment, she had a shortwave radio in a shoebox in her closet. Brian Littell, the CIA Cuban specialist who witnessed the Espalega's disaster, knew Montes well. She used to sit across the table from me at meetings that I conveyed when I was National Intelligence Officer. Littell remembers. She wasn't polished or smooth. He knew that she had a big reputation within the DIA, but to him, she always seemed a bit odd. I would try to engage her, and she would always give me these strange reactions. When I would try to pin her down at some of these meetings that I convened on, what do you think Fidel's motives are about this? She would fumble. In retrospect, the deer with the highlights in her eyes. She bulked. Even physically, she would show some kind of reaction that caused me to think, oh, she's nervous because she's just such a terrible analyst. She doesn't know what to say. One year, she says, Montes was accepted into the CIA's Distinguished Analyst Program, a research sabbatical available to intelligence officers from across the government. Where did she ask to go? Cuba, of course. She went to Cuba funded by this program. Can you imagine? Littell said, if you were a Cuban spy trying to conceal your intentions, would you request a paid sabbatical in Havana? Littell was speaking almost 20 years after it had happened, but the brazenness of her behavior still astonished him. She went to Cuba as a CIA Distinguished Intelligence Analyst. Of course, they were delighted to have her, especially on our nickel, and I'm sure that they gave her all kinds of clandestine tradecraft training while she was there. I suspect, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure she met with Fidel. Fidel loved to meet with this principal agents to encourage them, to congratulate them, to revel in the success they were having together against the CIA. When Montes came back to the Pentagon, she wrote a paper in which she didn't even bother to hide her biases. There should have been all kinds of red flags raised and guns that went off when her paper was read by her supervisors, because she said things about the Cuban military that made absolutely no sense except from the Cubans' point of view. But did anyone raise those flags? Red flags. Littell says he never once suspected she was a spy. There were CIA officers of my rank or close to my rank who thought she was the best Cuban analyst there was. He said, so he rationalized away his uneasiness. I never trusted her, but for the wrong reasons, and that's one of my great regrets. I was conceived that she was a terrible analyst on Cuba. Well, she was. Because she wasn't working for us, she was working for Fidel, but I never connected the dots. Nor did anyone else. Montes had a younger brother named Tito, who was an FBI agent. He had no idea. Her sister was also an FBI agent who, in fact, played a key role in posing a ring of Cuban spies in Miami. She had no idea Montes' boyfriend worked for the Pentagon as well. His specialty, believe it or not, was Latin American intelligence. His job was to go up against spies like his girlfriend. He had no idea. When Montes was finally arrested, the chief of her section called her co-workers together and told them the news. People started crying in disbelief. The DIA had psychologists lined up to provide on-site counseling services. Her supervisor was devastated. None of them had any idea. In her cubicle, she had a quotation from Shakespeare's Henry V taped to her wall at eye level for all the world to see. The king bath note of all that they intended by interception which they dreamed not of. Or, to put it in a bit more plainly, the Queen of Cuba takes note of all that the U.S. intends by means that all around her do not dream of. The issue with spies is not that there is something brilliant about them, it is that there is something wrong with us. I will move on. It's kind of ruining the sequence a little bit, but I will move on, and then we'll go from there. Number 4. Over the course of his career, the psychologist Tim Levine has conducted hundreds of versions of the same simple experiment. He invites students to his laboratory and gives them a trivia test. What is the highest mountain in Asia? That kind of thing. If they answer the question correctly, they win a cash prize. To help them out, they are given a pattern. Someone they've never met before who is unknown to them, working for Levine. There is an instructor in the room named Rachel. Midway through the test, Rachel suddenly gets called away. She leaves and goes upstairs. Then the carefully scripted performance begins. The partner says, I don't know about you, but I could use the money. I think the answers were left right there. He points to an envelope lying in plain sight on the desk. It's up to them whether they cheat or not, Levine explains. In about 30% of cases, they do. Then Levine goes on. We interview and ask them, did you cheat? The number of scholars around the world who study human deception is vast. There are more theories about why we lie and how to detect these lies. Then there are about the Kennedy assassination. In that crowded field, Levine stands out. He was carefully constructed a unified theory about deception. And at the core of that theory are the insights he gained from the first trivia quiz study. I watched videotapes of a dozen or so of those post-experiment interviews with Levine in his office at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Here's a typical one featuring a slightly spaced out young man. Let's call him Philip. Interviewer: all right, so have you played Trivia Pursuit games before? Philip: not very much, but I think I have. Interviewer: in the current game, did you find the questions difficult? Philip: yes, some were. I was like, well, what is that? Interviewer: if you would scale them to 1 to 10, if 1 was easy and 10 was difficult, where do you think you would put them? Philip: I would put them at an 8. Interviewer: an 8. Yeah, that's pretty tricky. Philip is then told that he and his partner did very well on the test. The interviewer asks him why. Philip: teamwork. Interviewer: teamwork? Philip: yeah. Interviewer: okay, all right. Now I called Rachel out of the room briefly where she was gone. Did you cheat? Philip: I guess no. Philip slightly mumbles his words, his answer, then looks away. Interviewer: are you telling the truth? Philip: yes. Interviewer: okay. When I interview your partner and I ask her, what is she going to say? At this point in the tape, there's an uncomfortable silence as if the student is trying to get his story straight. He's obviously thinking very hard, Levine says. Philip: no. Answer. Interviewer: no. Philip: yeah. Interviewer: okay, all right. Well, that's all I need from you. Is Philip telling the truth? Levine has shown the Philip videotape to hundreds of people, and nearly every viewer correctly pegs Philip as a cheater. As the partner confirmed to Levine, Philip looked inside the answer-filled envelope the minute Rachel left the room. In his exit interview, he lied. and it's obvious he has no conviction, Levine said. I felt the same thing. In fact, when Philip is asked, did you cheat? And answers, I guess no, I couldn't contain myself and I cried out, oh, he's terrible. Philip was looking away. He was nervous. He couldn't keep a straight face. When the interviewer followed up with, are you telling the truth? Philip actually paused as if he had to think about it first. He was easy, but the more tapes we looked at, the harder it got. Here's a second case. Let's call him Lucas. He was handsome, articulate, confident. Interviewer, I have to ask you, when Rachel left the room, did any cheating occur? No. Lucas, no. Interviewer, no, you're telling me the truth? Lucas, yes, I am. Interviewer, when I interview your partner and I ask her the same question, what do you think she's going to say? Lucas, the same thing. Same thing. Everybody believes him. Levine said, I believe him. Lucas was lying. Levine and I spent the best part of a morning watching his trivia quiz videotapes. By the end, I was ready to throw up my hands. I had no idea what to make of anyone. The point of Levine's research was to try to answer one of the biggest puzzles in human psychology. Why are we so bad at detecting lies? You would think we'd be good at it. Logic says that it would be very useful for human beings to know when they are being deceived. Evolution over many millions of years should have favored people with the ability to pick up the subtle signs of deception, but it hasn't. In one iteration of this experiment, Levine divided his tapes in half. 22 liars and 22 truth tellers. On average, the people he had watched all 44 videos correctly identified the liars 56% of the time. Other psychologists have tried similar versions of the same experiment. The average of all of them, 54%. Just about anyone is terrible. Police officers, judges, therapists, even CIA officers running big spice networks overseas. Everyone. Why? Tim Levine answers is called the Truth Default Theory, or TDT. I think that is a good way to stop, but I think over the past few years, this is kind of like a personal antidote. Over the past few years, I think I've found a very keen interest in detecting body language, how people lie, how people react to certain things, whether that be from their facial expression, whether that be from their body reacting, whether that be their eyes, their mouths, some kind of small twitch. I think it's very fascinating because we all, very basic knowledge, we all think differently, we all react differently, but to pick up on some of those things as like a natural thing for somebody looks very different for everybody. So being able to pick up on certain things, I think, is very fascinating, because when you're confronted with a stranger, and let's say one of your friends, or let's say one of your friends has this kind of same habit when they're lying, they start stuttering, they look very nervous, and a stranger you're talking to starts doing the same thing, you're like, that kind of seems very familiar. Or like in this case, when someone's very confident, it's a lot harder, but I feel like you could still gauge, right? I feel like you can still get to the bottom if they're lying, if you ask the right type of questions. Or, one of the things my dad always used to say is that the truth, no matter when, it will come out. The truth will come out. In years' time, weeks' time, months' time, doesn't matter. It will come out eventually. So yeah. That's a very good experiment. I would love to, I like to be, I don't know where these experiments are being held, but I'd love to be part of them just to see, how much of a good poker face I can pose, but also would I tell the truth? Would I say, yeah, I cheated? But is there fun in that? But who knows? Anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll probably be in a hotel or something, but peace.